Everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. A very eventful week full of NHS drama and more info coming out, but also the long-awaited Q3 2023 earnings. Also, low and high analyst price targets. Additionally, with a channel announcement you'd be interested to hear at the end. So looking at the stock first, the main narrative of the week was earnings. So the chart speaks for itself, honestly. Palantir started the week off in the $15, $14 range, but once earnings came out, and I saw this during my early morning live stream that day, pre-market was climbing and climbing as more and more folks got out the info on earnings. Now for the actual day itself, we closed off in the high 1790s and poked into the $18 though throughout the day. Then on Friday, continuing it on, just not at the same level, we hit into the 19s, but then we leveled off back into the 18s. And that's just also off the backs of a softening of the jobs numbers, where the jobs numbers fell below expectations. As a growth company, Palantir, even though it doesn't have debt, it's still beholden to interest rates because of valuation multiples affected by this. So basically, if we see the economy maybe showing signs of weakness in any case like jobs, then rates can be paused and maybe even go down, which is good for companies like Palantir. Now, what was all the news for this week? First, the BBC had an interview with Karp since he was in town for the UK AI Safety Summit, which I'll go over later in the video. But for the interview itself, I had a whole video especially pointing out the chaotic nature of the interview, coming off more as a way to keep pushing a leading question or interrogation to form a narrative rather than actually being informational for the audience in the UK, which I thought was the point of this originally. And honestly, I think Karp thought that was the case too, but either way, I still think Karp did his best despite the rude nature of the interviewer who would keep interrupting him, especially as he was explaining why the leading questions were ill-informed or at least needed caveats explained. It's obvious what the actual goals were from the interview though, but regardless of that, essentially the big points were that Palantir doesn't sell data, and this was funny because he said we've never done that for the past 20 years, and she's basically trying to argue, well, you'll start doing it now, which makes no sense if you understood what Palantir's products do, especially in regards to intelligence and the military applications and the value they bring. But also, she tried painting Palantir as them giving away their product for free as insidious, like it was bad for the UK, but that literally gives the UK more power to stop using Palantir if it doesn't work out. It just shows how confident Palantir is in bringing value, and it was just plain confusing for me, and I'm sure for the audience as well, because we all know what free trials are. It's common practice and it isn't controversial. And yes, some could argue it's for important health data here in this case, but Palantir is literally working with the organization who I assume knows or can at least attest to its value in some fashion. But either way, it's just confusing to the audience because you're trying to argue trying something for free is bad, but if the product is truly didn't work, wouldn't you just be glad you don't have the sunk cost of paying for something like that sucks, and you can just leave saving face and money? So I just rolled my eyes at these kind of questions. But they also talked about AI in general and how the world should proceed since they are there for the safety summit. Karp says his typical answer that it is dangerous in the wrong hands, so safeguards should be needed, and that can be started with the AI Safety Summit, which he's there for. But check out my video there for the details or the interview itself. Now, another big piece of news regarding the NHS is from NHS England themselves. They are rolling out a travel program for patients who have been waiting more than 40 weeks for surgery, and if they don't have something within 8 weeks, they're able to do this. Patients will be reached out to via multiple forms of communication and can provide what radius of travel they are willing to do so that the NHS can find surgery availability outside of their regular local hospital radius. I also go through the FDP FAQ that they've published themselves as well, and how this literally points to Palantir and the FDP making this possible. And this is important to note because the foundation of making this program possible and to work is Palantir and the FDP securely tying all this data together in an ontology, since these things are always changing and communicating with each other. And this keeps adding to the argument of expanding Palantir and the FDP because regardless of cost savings, let's say, this saves lives. I think most patients are willing to travel a little farther if they can in order to have a better quality of life, or better yet, an extension of their lifespan and lifestyle. Plus, this compounds on itself to make patient waiting lists and surgery scheduling less cluttered as they clear up these backed up logs in the meantime for new surgeries to take place after this, faster in the future. And out of all this, I'm hoping to see more programs in the future like this because you can coordinate amongst all the hospitals. Like this specific use case here, you can start using it for more specified patient populations and services associated with that, and it could be much more targeted. And even on the flip side, you could do something similar with clinicians, providers here to make their work much more effective and being able to get to the patients they need to. So it's always great to see this kind of progress. And then earnings. This is the biggest story of the week. I made a whole thorough video, but I think I can do a speed run of this all in one paragraph. But every individual investor should do their own due diligence to be thorough on their own. But the major points are fourth GAAP profitable quarter, so S&P eligibility. Revenue grew 17%, which can be a turning point sign since revenue comparables were downtrending all the way to last quarter's 13% year-over-year growth, but now it's back to 17. And now customer count, specifically for commercial, had a 45% increase. That's huge. The overall customer count was still respectable at 34%, but these are strong signs to investors and the market that Palantir can possibly show the progress of their foundation of going after growth in the AI market. And then guidance. Guidance for fourth quarter revenue, if they hit the bottom end, maintains that 17% year-over-year growth. But if they eke out slightly above that and beat it, they would be at 18.5%, which of course would point to more progress and getting closer to over 20%. And then for full year 2023, they raised guidance from in excess of $2.212 billion to $2.216 to $2.220 billion. Plus the earnings call. I don't want to quote every single sentence here, so the main theme is management is confident and AIP is the growth engine here, and it's working in their AIP boot camps as well. So check out my detailed video from the day of earnings for that thorough review. But as always, it's always better to check the source material on Palantir's YouTube channel for the call and their investor relationships website for the earnings report. And out of this, as I talked about the stock price at the beginning, the market took this very favorably, and honestly, it was a pleasant surprise to me. Now, what I haven't made videos on. Now, the UK AI Safety Summit itself, I don't have Palantir-specific news in regard to this, but the outcomes of this affects their business. All countries in attendance, including the United States and China, signed the Bletchley Declaration. This statement emphasizes the vast opportunities presented by artificial intelligence, AI, for global well-being, peace, and prosperity. It also stresses the importance of safe, human-centric, trustworthy, and responsible AI development, and that's to maximize its potential benefits across different sectors in the world, like health, education, development, things like that. However, it also acknowledges the significant risks associated with AI, particularly in development of highly capable AI models, and they also highlight the need for international cooperation to address these risks or some level of oversight. The document also emphasizes the role of various stakeholders, including countries, international organizations, companies like Palantir, civil society, and academia, to ensure that AI safety is inclusive in its development. The key areas that they are focusing on include identifying shared AI safety concerns, building risk-based policies, and then fostering international scientific research on frontier AI safety. So they want to sustain an inclusive global dialogue on AI and continue to research to harness AI's potential responsibly. But let's be honest, we all know the United States and China and any other strong country will be, at least on the military side, will be doing everything they can to get the lead on AI. Calypto AI announced their partnership with Palantir, which has already been known about, and I made a previous video about this a couple months ago, but the big news here is that their AI security platform is now up and running and available to government clients. So on the AI front, they are working with LLM security, they identify malicious attacks that can stem from or through generative AI tools, and also verification of the outputs and the decision-making progress here. So they try to secure different aspects in regards to using AI. Now, the nice point here is that they've already worked with numerous agencies currently, like the DoD, Air Force, and Homeland Security, but it looks like they need FedStart still to easily ramp up to those IL certifications to do more business with these governing bodies. And that obviously has highly sensitive data that would fall under these security measures. So it's always great to see FedStart bringing value here and being available to see if this works. Then RBC rates Palantir at underperform with a $5 price target. Now, they're saying they closely monitor the retail sentiment since, in their opinion, can be the primary driver of the stock's price movement. They note it makes a tough stock to short in the short term, which makes sense. Right now, we're almost $20 here, but they still are concerned with government data and cite trends and softening from recent quarters, which they believe warrants this $5 target. So not much to comment more, but everyone's got their own model and level of risk, and you can finagle Palantir's numbers, which on a little generous side goes a long way when it comes to multiples and how the person's perspective can reach their numbers. But even after earnings, I wouldn't expect them to change their rating or at least highly for their price target if they're going to be on a pure numbers basis without any assumption of accelerating growth. It sounds like they just want to keep seeing more evidence here, and they'd probably raise their price target once the price is even higher. Then on the opposite side, HSBC upgraded Palantir to a buy rating with a $21 price target, and that's increased from $16. They cite the revenue growth can increase back to 20% and 22% growth for 2024 and 2025 respectively, and that's due to the defense business and what's happening in the world as more geopolitical events happen. They state next year the price could easily jump 25%, and they also believe that AIP is going to drive this growth and likely will push faster revenue growth without the need for rising sales and marketing costs. Then back to the healthcare again, Palantir released a video trailer of their partnership with Cleveland Clinic. And as a reminder, they have a 10-year partnership with Cleveland Clinic. So this is for the long haul to develop the best hospital platform, I believe, in the world. And that's for them to spread to more hospitals over time if this is refined. Now, anyone working in healthcare should know Cleveland Clinic is a prestigious partnership and top hospital system in the world. And you can even say they are a must-have client if you want to make it big in healthcare. So side note, I've worked at companies vying for Cleveland Clinic's business, and this is a top priority with putting bids for an RFP from them. So this trailer brought to light awesome info like the Hospital 360 platform they're building in their partnership. Like I mentioned, has huge potential for other hospitals across the world, but for the usual time they take to calculate bed capacity, they reduced this down by 75%. So this is calculation time. And then Cleveland Clinic was also able to easily look out 6 weeks ahead to forecast their staffing needs. They believe this technology is crucial for patients to go through their journeys through the medical care process. And I just think about the collective health outcomes improvements that are possible across the United States if this can actually be the case, at least for every major hospital, if they can see these kind of results. And then back to the NHS. A big article, kind of a little clickbaity here, to be honest, stated the FDP procurement process is complete. Now, just because that is done, they said there is still a full business case approval that needs to be done. Now, I don't know the exact process for the UK government to get this stuff official, but at least it sounds like we know they aren't evaluating or competing the products against each other anymore, so there shouldn't be any possibility of a new competitor ever coming back again, but rather it sounds like they need official documentation and approval of how the winner will be used formally here. But we still don't know the winner and how Palantir will turn out in the end. So it's baby steps, but something that seems so close yet feels so far still. All we can do as investors is continue to be patient and trust in the process. You can believe Palantir will win or lose the contract, doesn't matter to me. And even if they do lose, in my opinion, it's not a make or break for the company. Like, they won't be destroyed. It's still going to be a setback or hiccup, of course, for Palantir, especially as AIP commercial, though, is going to take over the narrative right now. That's the point that everyone's looking at right now, at least from these earnings. Then we've got Joe Lonsdale on the morning of earnings bright and early. He had an interview with Fox Business, not about Palantir's earnings, though. They get his thoughts on the general market and the Fed with its effects in regards to global conflicts, and specifically Israel versus Hamas in Gaza. So still on brand and in the mission, they speak about the atrocities nonetheless, about Palantir being proud to be working alongside Israel. Now, he doesn't go into specifics on how Palantir was and is working with Israel, but did say inspirations for Palantir themselves was a point that they prided themselves on when they finally got to officially work with the Israeli government. You can have whatever opinion you believe here personally, but if you're a shareholder, it should not be a surprise as a company that they are publicly and strongly standing with Israel as the United States ally, and you could say the closest thing to a democracy with Western influence in that region. Karp's opening for earnings strongly reinforced this as well. So that was the news there, but also I got a big channel announcement. Well, at least for me, my first live stream happened during earnings with literally no idea what I'm doing, but the poll speaks that a good number of you would find value in a weekly live stream on Sundays, which is conveniently tomorrow from this video. So I've been releasing regularly scheduled recorded weekly Palantir news videos on Saturdays. So this Sunday live stream will be a chance for live interaction, questions, or just to hang out on a Sunday morning, you know? And we've got people all around the world from what I learned at the first live stream. So using YouTube's analytics, the scheduled time is for tomorrow, Sunday, November 5 at 8 a.m. Central Time or 9 a.m. Eastern. So I know a lot of you are in the United States. So YouTube says my audience is on at this time. I'll trust that, but we'll figure out together what works best for future scheduling. But thank you all for stopping by and hope to see a lot of you tomorrow if you have a chance.